Democracy in Kentucky is absolutely abysmal. Venezuela has a higher turnout rate than Kentucky does. Colorado's 75% last year. Maduro got elected with 80% turnout rate. They just had a primary, and they got 20%. Governor's race gets about 30%. Sometimes it inches up towards 50% during presidential elections, but primaries and, what are those in-between elections, midterm elections, don't expect, 10 to 20% of the Kentucky people to go out for the primaries or midterm elections. So Kentucky's also, not only does Kentucky's democracy just suck when it comes to the turnout rate, but also there's, no initiatives. You could have the entire state sign a petition and it wouldn't go on the ballot for the people to vote on. Meanwhile, in Colorado, just in 2018, I had 13 statewide initiatives plus a couple local initiatives. So I had 13 policies for the state of Colorado along with, my brethren, the Coloradan people. We all went out and we all voted for these 13 initiatives, these ballot questions that were offered to us. When I lived in Kentucky, I only had one that was offered to me that I can remember, and it was about Colorado last year, 2018, there was Amendment V. Amendment V says, should we lower the age requirement for members of the state legislature? Of course we should. 18, you should be allowed to run for anything. Right now, you have to be 25 years of age to run for the state legislature, and they were only lowering it down to 21 years of age. So they weren't lowering it down enough. And guess what? 75% of Colorado wants to restrict the power of younger folks, which this blew me away. We legalize marijuana here, but we're not going to let 18-year-olds, if they're elected by the people, to go up to the state legislature. You must be 25 and not even 21, so it's still 25. I voted in favor of that. I also voted for the election ballot format to change it for the judicial retention elections. I voted no on the industrial hemp definition. They want to change it to Mitch McConnell's definition. I like that the hemp definition was in Colorado's Constitution. There's congressional redistricting, so an independent group is going to draw up all the congressional districts and the state legislative districts. I voted yes for that because fuck gerrymandering. That was 2 questions total. The 6th one, I voted to prohibit slavery and involuntary voluntary servitude in all circumstances. Now, the main one people think about is in prison, but also on family farms, too. So there's slavery. Anywhere where forced people are having to do labor without getting paid for it is over and gone in Colorado, so slavery is gone. I voted yes on that. Amendment 73, there is funding for public schools. It failed. I voted yes on it. There's compensation for reduction in fair market value by government law or regulation. I voted no on it, and it failed. Amendment 75, campaign contributions. I voted no on that. Authorization for bonds for highway projects. I voted for one and I voted against the other. Then there was limitations on payday loans. So payday lenders in Colorado could charge 180% astronomical, 180% interest on loans that poor people use payday lenders. So 180%, but that was limited to 36%. That's the only, usury. Position 112 was increased setback requirement for oil and natural gas development. I voted yes on it. This was strongly worded against the oil and gas corporations. The Proposition 112 said that the oil and gas industry had to stay 2,500 feet away from occupied structures, water sources, and areas designated as vulnerable. So houses, water sources, and vulnerable areas. The oil and gas industry should be staying away from those things anyways. 2,500 feet, that's what, half a mile? That seems like that might be a little too far. They might have got it passed if they would have said 1,000 feet away. It failed, but, I got to vote for it. So those are 13 questions I got to vote for in Colorado. And I only voted for one issue in my entire lifetime, 3 decades, 2 decades, I guess, as an adult. So for 20 years, I got to vote for one stinking issue in Kentucky. I come to Colorado, and last year I had 13 issues, 15 because the local issues. I also voted in, the election prior to that. So 13, they seem to have 10 initiatives every year. Because of the low turnout rate, because of the initiatives, Kentucky's democracy, Colorado just kicks the shit out of Kentucky's democracy. Venezuela kicks the shit out of Kentucky's democracy. Kentucky needs to look at these, places that have higher turnout rates and see what they're doing. And actually, attack the turnout rate like it fucking matters. Australia's got a 90% turnout rate. Colorado 75%. Venezuela 80%. Meanwhile, this 20% state who's got Mitch McConnell, so it's been dictating policy for the rest of America. They're, so what? 11% of the people. What's the majority of? Nothing. So that's not a mandate. That's for damn sure. And it's also not democratically legitimate. You need 50% plus one. So Kentucky's democracy sucks. Colorado's democracy is awesome. Here's a couple other ones. Open primaries was a ballot question in 2016. It got approved. I didn't vote on that one, but that was an issue. I voted no on strong mayor for Pueblo City. I voted against a new jail for Pueblo City. I voted yes for the Kevorkian law, so you're allowed to have legalized assisted suicide. I voted, yes, no. For the city of Pueblo, they had a racist Oakland plan, question 300, supposed to clean up Pueblo's criminals, but it was giving all the power to the police, and there's police corruption, so that, who are you going to side with, the corrupt police or the corrupt criminals, or just, be a hermit, go out into the woods and just live by yourself, man. So, there's a whole bunch of them, so there's a lot of them that I can't really remember, and I guess it's all public record, but anyways, the great thing about initiative is that the people put the initiative on the ballot, the people vote for that initiative, and then if the people vote in favor of it, that initiative immediately gets turned into law. The way that they have to write it, they have to say what law is going to change. So as soon as it's voted on, it's written into law at that very moment on election day. So the powers that be can't do shit about it. This is initiative, referendum, recall. These are sacred in Colorado. It's all the power back to the people. Kentucky needs this. Kentucky needs initiatives and recall and referendum. They need all these, democratic tools because it gives you a ballot question. So it makes them. I believe in initiative, referendum, and recall. Because the powers that be cannot fuck with the voters' initiative. They can't fuck with it whatsoever. The elites, all they can do while the people are putting a ballot question on it and the people are voting on it is just, keep their thumbs up their asses and just wait for the result. Well, I guess we'll see what the result is. So, you can pass permanent law in Colorado, the establishment be damned. Now, you got to get the people on board. And then Amendment 71 made it harder to get ballot initiatives on the ballot. So, and then many of the initiatives in Colorado are amendments, so they're constitutional changes. So they're permanent changes to Colorado's fundamental, foundational legal document. But for Kentucky, there's no ballot questions. There was one in 2004 to, go ahead and discriminate against gay folks. They had Marcy's Law, which is victims' rights, in 2018, and it passed. 63% of the Kentucky people actually approved of a referendum. So referendum is when the government puts a ballot question out there, but the people can't. Initiatives are people, inspired or people initiated versus government. Kentucky, rarely has a ballot question unless they're discriminating against the gay folks or they're passing Marcy's Law, which is victims' rights, which Colorado also, already has victim rights enshrined into our Constitution here. But Marcy's Law passes. So, Kentucky finally got an initiative. Kentucky finally got an initiative. And what happens? They passed it. They actually are not an initiative. They got a referendum. They got a ballot question. So it's a referendum. It's government initiated. So the legislature put Marcy's Law on the ballot, and 63% of the Kentucky people voted for it. But did it immediately go into law? No. Right now it's tied up in court. So a Kentucky judge blocked it. So even when Kentucky gets a ballot question and they approve of it, they still don't get the decision. The powers that be, the elite, do not give a flying fuck about Kentucky. They don't care about the Kentucky people. Meanwhile, here in Colorado, every year they're asking us 10 questions. The people. Hey, people of Colorado, what do you, believe on this issue and that issue? And so that's democracy. We're part of this thing, and we're actually, and the powers that be in the established ways. I'm just going to go ahead and say, well, Kentucky needs a revolution when it comes to their elections. I compiled a list of all the progressive election ideas that the 2019 Kentucky politicians have come up with, and then I've added 10 myself or so. So they have a lot of little tiny incremental changes, Michael G. Adams and then the Heather French Henry. So Heather French Henry and Michael G. Adams are both going to have just tiny little incremental changes, and I went ahead and put those, I listed those because I like their ideas. It just doesn't go far enough. Whereas my ideas, you see the bigger picture. You see it more holistic. You got a vision when I say we need referendum initiative and recall, all power to the people. When I say we need instant runoff voting, that's to make it fair for the independents. You want to, eliminate the spoiler effect. People say, oh, I don't want to vote for Jeff Young because he doesn't have a chance. I'm not going to vote for Rocky because he doesn't have a chance. I'm not going to vote for somebody I really like, Gatewood. I'm not going to vote for somebody I really like because he doesn't have a chance. That's fucking bullshit. We all deserve a chance. So instant runoff voting provides that chance for everybody. It makes everybody play nice instead of just ostracizing and being shitty to one another. It eliminates the spoiler effect, so it actually makes the election fair. The only thing that third parties can essentially do is disrupt the election. Since they don't have a chance to win, then, that's a protest vote against the two-party system, against the establishment. But what if you actually want your best candidate to win? So not only does this help the people that support your third parties, but it also helps to get those votes into the Republican or Democrat Party if, their candidate isn't the top one that's chosen. It guarantees a majority. It guarantees a far, deep, and wide majority. So the person that's selected with instant runoff voting isn't just, the popular, most, plurality, winning person, but it's the person that has most and wide and deep, most pervasive support amongst all the people. And they must get a majority. So it has to beat that 50% plus one threshold. And then so that's way better. Instant runoff voting makes elections fair. So out of the entire country, not only is Kentucky's elections not fair, Colorado's elections aren't fair. Only Maine. Here are the ideas from the Kentucky politicians. Get a photo ID, so we need secure elections, so we need to make sure we have a photo ID. Right now, all you need is a credit card with your name on it, but a photo ID that, pretty much. Also, the state should give out photo IDs for free if people can't afford it. Not everybody gets driver's license or a state ID, so they should have a voter photo ID. Clean up the voter rolls. I'm sure there's a lot of dead folks and people that move away, so cleaning up the voter rolls should just be, something that's done every 10 years anyways. You need centrally located polls, so that way everybody can go to the polls. Extend voter hours for, 2 extra hours to 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., so that way 9 to 5 workers have some more time. Eliminate excuses for absentee ballots. This is Heather French Henry. So Heather French Henry wants to eliminate the excuses for absentee ballots. So you come in, you want an absentee ballot, here you go. You don't even need an excuse. Here's your ballot. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Automatic registration, same-day registration, extend early voting by amending KRS 117.085. Improve cybersecurity by requiring county clerks to use password-protected Wi-Fi. Make voting by mail easier by allowing voters to choose to turn the mail-in ballots in, by mail or in person. Allow changes to party registration to be available to residents up until voter registration deadline, which is 1 month. So 6 months to 1 month instead of having to change your party 6 months prior. Then you got it up to 1 month prior. And tax super PACs. That's not totally, it's kind of elections, right? You have all this dark money, this outside dark money, and then these people, PACs, you can put unlimited amount of money into these PACs. They should be paying taxes too, but it has nothing to do with turnout rate, but these are all ideas. All these 12 ideas, if I'm the Secretary of State of Kentucky, I'm going to go ahead and put all 12 of these ideas from all the Secretary of State candidates and some of the governor's candidates into action. But you still don't see the overall vision, okay? So I want all those 12 ideas enacted, but I also want these 9 ideas enacted too. At the very, least, we need to make the election day a holiday. This is freedom in saying that election day would be on a weekday during working hours, right? It's on a Tuesday from 6 to 6. So the 9 to 5 people just have a small window of opportunity. What the fuck? People, they don't want them to vote in Kentucky. The elite don't want people to vote in Kentucky. So unless you're retired or unemployed, right, you have to rush, and then you have to study, and then you have to learn all that, and then the media sucks, so you don't even know really who's running or what's going on. I heard there was no signs, no attention for the primary whatsoever. There was no sense of a race. There's always, you know, something going on when there's an election, right, but not in Kentucky. So Election Day needs to be a freedom and democracy day, a work-free holiday, and, you know, you get paid, double the wage. Election Day should be sacred. What the fuck? People fought and died for this shit. And if you're not even voting, well, you're not really doing anything politically. Or I guess you're paying attention to the legislative record, and you're looking at the bills, and the bills that you don't like, you're calling up your politicians, and you're saying, hey, your reps, your state, your senator, and your state reps, I'm sure you're calling these people up, right? I mean, you didn't vote, but I'm sure you're actually involved in the process. Declare Freedom and Democracy Day. Election Day should be a work-free holiday. Of course it should be. Lower age requirements. Just like in Colorado, there's a lot of positions. The legislature, you have to be 25 in Colorado to be a state rep. And in Kentucky, to be a city council person or a magistrate, you have to be 24 years of age. If you're 18, you're old enough to fight and die in wars, you should be old enough to run for mayor or dog catcher or city council or magistrate for these, you know. So if you're 18 and the people pick you to be the president, to be the governor, to be the magistrate, it's up to the people. By having an age restriction, that's just, you know, what's the opposite of ageism? That's, you know, youngsterism, millennialism. So lower the age requirements for all public offices, get a referendum initiative and recall instituted, get an instant runoff voting, a.k.a. ranked choice voting, a.k.a. preferential voting, enacted into law. Get 30 days of electioning and have written ballots sent out to everybody 30 days prior to an election. This is how Colorado does it. Everybody gets one ballot, it's sent out to you, and then you mail it in, and then they count it. You have 30 days is plenty of time, you know, if you're a working person, 9 to 5, 40-hour week, so you work, you know, most of the week, you still got your weekend, and you got the written ballots sitting on the table there, so you could talk to friends and neighbors, you could research it, look at Google, they pass out these big packets out to the county clerks every year. You can get one of those packets that explains all the issues, so you could do your research. You got 30 days to do your research, so whereas, you know, there might be some excuse for Kentuckians not voting because basically they just got one day, one moment, one opportunity, and that's it. And you missed your shot. No, you had that. No, that 1 minute. Not right now, but that minute just a second ago, right back then. That was your moment to go vote. But whereas Colorado, on the other hand, has 30 days. 30 days. They send it out to you. Sometimes it might be 3 weeks. But, you know, that still gives you, at least 2 weeks. You put it in the mail, and then, you know, it takes a day or two to get there. Or you could drop it off directly. So if you get 3 weeks in the mail, then you got, you know, 2.5 weeks if you could drive to the, not mailbox, but they got ballot boxes that look like mailboxes at libraries. A written ballot, too, is a paper trail. That's your paper ballot right there. So if there's a problem in Kentucky, they got Diebold electronic machines, and if somebody hacked into that machine and give out the wrong result, nobody would know about it. Nobody, none of the voters, at least, maybe the clerks or the ballot box watchers, the poll watchers, they might know. But 30 days. Have 30 days with a written ballot, paper trail. So if there is some fraud or some fuck up, then you can do a recount, and you have you have the paper ballot, so you can actually count it. With those Diebold machines, if somebody alleges fraud, well, what can you do? Well, just record everybody that walked in. That guy punched in, and get everybody to come in. So who did you vote for? Then mark it down on a piece of paper. How are you going to recount it? Well, I looked at the computer screen. It said it was 4-2, and then I looked back at the computer screen. That's your recount. You looked at the computer screen again. So the fraud, you can hack those Diebold machines in 2 to 3 minutes. So the chances for electoral fraud is very high. The Fayette County website was down actually on Election Day, and 5 issues of public finance elections. This guarantees that all constitutionally qualified candidates, So if you're constitutionally qualified, that means you've got a chance. You could, become the auditor or the agricultural commissioner. If you're constitutionally qualified, you need equal access to the forums and the debates and literature, TV, newspaper, and online advertisements. Public finance elections, they call this welfare for politicians. So it's what your more libertarians would say. While that's true, this might cost, $1 million or so to institute something like this versus the millions of dollars that, they all individually get their campaign funds, and you have this, crazy debate where everybody's just sort of spending money here and there and, doing speeches. It's not all, on one stage, and then they also discriminate. They discriminated against Jeff Young just like they discriminated against Gatewood Galbraith all those years. Gatewood gave a damn about the people. Gatewood was passionate. So that means if the media would have actually respected Gatewood, the people might have heard his message and they might have voted for him. Well, the elite, the corporations, the moneyed interests, they don't want shit like that. They don't want the public, the people to hear this. Also want to enact Australia's compulsory voting law. It works. Australia boasts a 90% turnout rate. So in practice, right? Oh my God, vote 1,000. You're going to fine me $1,000. Probably not, right? It doesn't. In practice, nobody gets fined in Australia. But if you stand up, okay, so you're against me forcing you to go vote, right? Kentucky, you hate that, right? Well, that's going to get you politically active too. Okay, you want to stop a law? You want to stop this Australia compulsory voting law from happening? Well, that means you're going to have to call your politicians. You're going to have to pay attention to who's voting and what's going on. And, you're actually going to have to get politically active. So I win by losing. I win by winning. The Australia compulsory, to be honest, I think Kentucky just needs to understand that we're all going to go vote. And when we're all looking at these elections and realize there's no questions, no initiatives, we don't even know who these damn candidates are. It's on a work day. We have to rush in and vote. And everybody's paying attention to this. People will be frustrated. Oh, I couldn't do it. I had to work. I hope they don't find me because, okay, good. Good. Now we're having the real conversation that we should have been having, 200 ideas. I want at least $1 million winner. So if you're going to say, hey, don't make me vote, okay, then I'm going to encourage you to come vote. So you have the Kentucky Lottery, which is run by the government, and then 75% of the proceed goes to the corporation that owns it. So shit, talk about, maybe one person might get a lot of that money, but 75%, that's going to the damn Kentucky Lotto system, and that's supposed to help education or something. Who knows, the lotto. So we could just make the lotto, these elections cost millions of dollars anyway, so when we're spending $10 million for the election, spending $11 million isn't that much different than $10 million, except for you would actually award one Kentuckian would become a millionaire, and everybody, all those poor Kentuckians will rush out to, maybe get a chance of actually winning the lotto. So that would encourage people to go out. So you don't like me forcing people. Okay, what about me encouraging people to come out? Yeah, you don't like those ideas because they would work. Now, essentially, Kentucky Constitution, it's really, 1891, you got this law, that law, the laws are all over the place. A constitutional convention is necessary.